Amen. All right. Hopefully that's making sense. Okay, as we start to get into this a little bit. And I can't help by some of the things that I've studied over the years, but help you understand that if you had any true understanding of Kabbalah, not that I'm teaching Kabbalah, but that's what Yeshua was just teaching to a certain degree, is understanding the above and the below. I mean, that is the essence of understanding there's different realms, the realm of above and the realm of below. But as a Christian, as someone down and below, you would have thought of below meaning like down in hell. You are from hell. No, from earth. Of course, I don't think they're that dissimilar. I think they could be the same place to a certain degree, okay? Well, let's just understand that that's the effort that was trying to be explained through those Jewish types of writings. Understanding, I'm not saying they're right about everything or about anything. I'm just saying it's that effort to understand the relationship of below and above that really is at the heart of that teaching concept. And there it is, and Yeshua's trying to explain it. He said, I'm from above, you're not, you're from below. You can't understand that which is above unless it's revealed. We have no science, there's no intellectual power that can get you to understand above. You have to have it revealed. You cannot ascertain it or attain it on your own. That's what he's trying to say. We're not going to generationally get smart enough, technologically adept at it. There's no measuring device to measure it. It has to be revealed. And that's what he's trying to show you. And he says, I come from there, so I can explain it to you. I can reveal it to you. Because I understand it, having been from there. Anyway, so this is the part that we call the afterburn. And so if you have a comment or question, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Steve Waffle will bring the mic around. If you're on live stream, you've got Rob Wyatt and Kurt Meyer watching the live stream. They'll help monitor that. And try to keep the questions to this teaching only. Honor and shame in general, but part 3 specifically if you can. Please don't be upset if the answer is to go listen to another teaching. Okay, because that may be actually the best way to address the question. Okay, Deirdre.
First of all, thank you, Rabbi. I've got quite a bit written on my phone, but that's what happens when I'm actually allowed to focus. I have 2 questions and 2 comments. I was going to do this one later, but since we were talking about the above and below, I love this concept, and I have read that it was sort of an idiomatic phrase, as above, so below. I'm not sure if it was an entirely Middle Eastern thing, but I know it was definitely Israel. And I noticed a connection between John 8:23, mentioning I come from above, not below, and Luke 11:2, and it's the prayer. He's showing them how to pray. And it goes, as it is on earth, so let it be in heaven. There's the idiomatic phrase. So I was excited about that. And when I was reading about that, it connected in my head. We know that Yeshua did, Yahweh's will on earth, but we forget that he also did it in heaven. So there's that connection to verse 29. I always do what pleases him. It doesn't matter where I am, above or below, I'm always going to do that.
Correct.
And I know that they believed that in order for the world to function, it had to operate, as above, so below. It had to have that connection. So I don't know. That's just me geeking out. I'm sorry.
Amen. No, that's exactly it. Okay, that's exactly it.
Okay. Yay. So then I'm going to ask my questions. For John 7:16, sorry, I have to sit down because I can't hold both at the same time.
I'm going to use an analogy. Maybe this is a good analogy or not. Okay, we're trying to imitate the above. We do it in a very poor way because we're from the below. But think of it like, for example, a lot of you, have watched like, the Bob Ross painting shows and those kind of things. And you probably even, some of you have like tried to paint also. I did this one time, got a canvas, watched the show and tried to imitate. Mine didn't look anything like his, okay? Well, I mean, probably enough that you could tell that his scene had a lake and so did mine, and his had a mountain and so did mine. But that's kind of what we're trying to do, right? As it's being revealed, the above, or in other words, the template that we're looking to model, we're trying to imitate that to some degree. But now, had I practiced and worked at it, I'm sure at some point I could have done one and it would have looked a lot more like what the teacher was doing. And then if I kept practicing, I might even have gotten, if I had some talent, to the point where you would have a hard time telling mine from his. And that's kind of, I think, an analogy for what Abba's trying to tell us, the Father's trying to tell us. If we work at it, the below should eventually come to look like the above. And so as you become a disciple of Yeshua, as we're imitating him, the more we practice, the more we should look like him. So hopefully that was a reasonable analogy, okay? All right? All right, the problem is some of you are listening to what Bob Ross said, which is you're just putting happy little trees wherever you want. When you're supposed to be doing exactly what he did, okay? But he wanted you to be free to do whatever you want. Okay? But Abba says, imitate me. I already know what works. Okay? Go ahead.
Okay, so in John 7:16, it says, what is it? Sorry. My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me.
Yep.
Now, I noticed that there was a footnote in that verse that says that Yeshua mentioned that 7 times in John alone. And, you may need to slap me upside the head for this one, but that's why I'm here. So, in Christianity, I was kind of, it was hammered into me that 7 is the number of perfection. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's correct, or Yeshua was just trying to, get it across to them. I'm from my Father. This is, or both.
Well, it's probably not coincidental that he did it 7 times. I think he was doing both of those things. I think he was trying to pound something into their head that they weren't getting. And not so much pound it into their head, but just make sure that it was on record multiple times. I'm not speaking of myself, okay? By the way, I'm on record, hopefully the same thing. I am not speaking of myself. I get up here and try to get out of the way. And if you think this is me and not him, then that's okay. But I mean, I'm on record trying to make sure to say as much as I can, this is him, not me. Now, but of course, Yeshua even tells us that you need to do what you need to do to discern that. He says you need to look at and identify. He says, look at the works and see if they match. Go ahead.
Okay, so the next is John 7:20, talking about, the idiomatic phrase, if you've got a demon, meaning you're crazy. So obviously we know that Yeshua was not possessed by a demon. He was not crazy. Is that possible?
What?
In life? I mean, and not to sound too Christianese, but is it possible that there can be demons that cause things like the heavier mental illnesses like schizophrenia?
I don't know enough about that world.
Okay.
But I do know enough that it was used often enough for, as we would say, you're nuts, you're crazy.
Right.
And that's the way they were using it here, okay? They just said, this is crazy, this is crazy talk. I mean, think about what that might sound like to you if you're standing there having a conversation with someone who's basically claiming to be from above. I mean, you would say, this person's nuts. And that's what they were trying to say here.
Right,
okay?
right.
So this is not me saying that there is no external world, all right? Okay? I think there absolutely is. Do I understand it? No. Do I know how it plays into many of the things that it probably plays into? Not exactly. I've got some sense that, I'll give you this. My studies, and I've been looking into this quite a bit from at least a peripheral sort of surface level, is that whatever is out there that we would refer to that way, think of them as emotional parasites. And they feed on negative emotion. Okay? By the way, they could also feed on positive emotion if that positive emotion is unchecked and out of control. So it still ends up being negative. Okay? And so they are delighting in you, continuing in things that keep you in anger, depression, frustration, lusts and perversions, because they feed on that. That's the sense I'm getting.
Okay.
And so from a parasitical point of view, which is why they can't really work with or do anything to someone who has overcome those things. And so realize that the longer you spend in a negative emotion, the more you're simply feeding the parasites. Okay? Just like putting certain things in your body will feed the physical parasites, and you can rid yourself of them by stopping to feed them, the sugars and the other things that they might feed on. Well, same thing with the spiritual parasites. So that seems to be what he's been showing me of late, is the connection to our emotions. Because I'm trying to understand where people are in terms of their struggles in their life. And a lot of it is in their struggles with their emotional states. And they seem to really have a hard time snapping out of negative ones. And that's because I think there are parasites that are just eating it up, loving it up, and wanting you to stay there. Okay? Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, one more and then I'll be quiet.
That's okay. It was a good point.
Okay, so you made the comments about people in mainstream Christianity have this idea of Messiah coming along and unlocking their chains and their shackles, and then they're free to just go and do whatever they want. So the imagery came to my mind of, there are many cultures that have life debts. And once you are freed from something that is potentially harmful, or someone saves your life, you're now in the servitude of that person. So is that a kind of correct?
I have no problem with that analogy. I mean, you are bought and paid for with a price. You have a life debt. But it's not so much. Okay, so I just said I don't ever. You know what? I'm actually going to have a problem with it from this point of view. You shouldn't be, as a life debt, doing this because of an obligation. He wants you to do it because you want to do it. Because you recognize that it brings the stuff that he's told you it will bring. Not just because you owe. You do owe, but that's not enough. Doing it for life debt means you could do it begrudgingly, with the wrong attitude, with the wrong approach, etc. So no. So I'll agree that yes, I think it does fit the sort of the idea of a life debt, but no, I don't want you to think of it that way because you'll have the wrong mindset.
Okay.
How's that? Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
In Kabbalah,
You got to put it right up to your mouth.
because you said in Kabbalah, it seems like the Jews use that as a higher way to get to our Heavenly Father. I don't know if that's true, but it seems to me that their prayers are beautiful. But if they only knew our Savior, wouldn't that would be a lot better?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, look, the Kabbalah, is their way of trying to understand the two realms. That doesn't make it right. Doesn't mean that you should study it. Doesn't mean that anything. I'm just saying that is their attempt to try to understand. Every culture has their attempts to understand. Every religion that's out there, every culture that's ever existed has tried to understand those two realms, the above and the below. Okay? And so, it doesn't matter if you're going to Hindu or Buddhist or, Aztec or Christian or Muslim. They're all trying to understand the two realms. And so the Jewish esoteric writings of the Kabbalah is their attempt at understanding the two realms. And I see Yeshua referring to some of that here. I'm not saying he was necessarily speaking Kabbalistically, but he certainly would have been speaking stuff that the Kabbalist would have understood. If they were reading that, they go, oh, he's talking our language right there. Okay?
Okay, one more thing is when he was trying to convince them, I guess, I don't know if that's the right word to say, that who he was, their eyes and their understanding and their ears were not closed then, right? It's now that they're understanding and they have, like these scales in their eyes and understanding.
Okay, so it said that there were some that believed after he spoke, others didn't. This is because of their individual stubborn choices to not be willing to hear, okay? And so some of it is that. We're also going to see quotes from Isaiah where it talks about, where they've not been given eyes to see or ears to hear, lest they should repent, etc. So there's some of that going on. But at this point, when Yeshua is talking to them, a lot of it is because they are so self-convinced in their own mind, they can't receive. Anybody ever have a conversation with somebody on any topic where they're absolutely 100% convinced and there's no talking to them? You can't talk to them at all because they are so locked in, they cannot receive another thought, another perspective. And that's where some of them were. Now others were not, and then it says that they believed. It says, and he was speaking these words, and many believed in him. Many heard. But they were not people that had already locked their thought process. They still had an open, There was, my daughter and I have been looking at a lot of stuff in neuroplasticity. There was still a certain plasticness or a plasticity to their thinking. In other words, they could adjust, it could be flexible. Whereas a lot of them were totally intractable in their thinking and they could not receive it. Okay?
Yes, question, if I'm understanding this correctly. In chapter 8, verses, the conversation about him setting you free, 33 through 36, would it be correct to go and say that truly, truly I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant to sin, and the servant to sin that would be, that does not stay in the house forever, a son stays? Or would it be like a servant of Yahweh, but that's just doing it with just to serve, but isn't doing it with the more intent to please like a son would? Just someone who's just walking through the mechanics doesn't stay forever, or is it both?
All right, so the servant, okay, remember the Jewish culture, I shouldn't say the Jewish culture, but at this point he's talking to the Jewish community, understands Shemitah, understands Yovel. In other words, there's a period of time of which there's a release. And guess what happens at that release? The obligated servant leaves. He says, but a son stays, because the son stays by choice, not by obligation. So the servant is only there because he has to be there. He says, so a servant doesn't stay. He only stays as long as he has to stay. He says, but the son stays forever. If then the son makes you free because he's not going anywhere, then truly you are free. But the servant's only there because he has to be there. He's obligated to be there. And again, the mindset of their culture, the Torah culture, was servants eventually get released.
Would it be also correct to connect this to the servant that wishes to stay because he loves his master?
Yep. And the one who then pierces his ear, okay? Because now he's made a choice, okay? Look, at some point, I don't know when, we're going to get much deeper in all of this, because all of this is written on so many different levels. We're still trying to lay out the basic simplicity of it. Remember, Yeshua said that everything was written in what? Parables, which means that nothing in your books should be taken only in the literal. I didn't say you shouldn't take any of it literal, but literal is the most simplistic way of understanding it. And then Yeshua starts to reveal higher and different levels of understanding you're supposed to glean out of this. And we do that now to some degree. There's a lot more we could do, but I don't want to go and distract you with all of that fun stuff when you haven't understood what you need to actually just do. Because the other levels help you understand more of the what's really going on and why. But still, you got to figure out the simplicity of it. Okay, because the simplicity should be enough if you never learn more. But we can't, because some people say, well, I'd like to go deeper. You can't, you're tripping over the basics first, though. Stop tripping over the basics and we can go deeper. This already is deeper. Okay, today was deeper than we've really dealt with. That's because Yeshua was much deeper. Of course, you've read this chapter many times and you had no idea how deep it was really talking about. Okay, but there's a lot of deeper stuff going on in here. Just the simplicity of the revealing of this above and below thing. That's a lot deeper. Okay, Rick?
Yeah, mine follows Sarah's, the same verse, really, actually, regarding servant does not stay in the house forever, a son stays forever. You know, we're supposed to become like Yeshua. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to become sons of Elohim, joint heirs with Yeshua, of the Father. And I relate that back to, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but Yeshua pretty clearly says in verse 31, and you've referred this to how many times? Stay in me. If you stay in me, if you stay in my word. And he says that in verse 31. So isn't that really speaking the same thing that he's referring to in 35? A son stays forever because he stays in his word.
Absolutely. Look, again, we go back to Moses' time where Israel was supposed to become the servants of the living Elohim. But again, servants by obligation or servants by choice. Okay? And once they become servants by choice, they become sons. Who's next? Okay, Michael.
In chapter 8, verse 49, I just noticed that's the vertical alignment that you're talking about. It shows it very, very clearly that you have to value, when he says, you have not valued me, but yet he says, I value my Father. That's the vertical alignment.
Amen. Okay, so let me kind of hit this in another way. See, a lot of you, I think, coming through the Christian path, there were big name teachers, and they were famous, and they were impressive in some ways, right? And they had accolades and all this kind of stuff. But if you ever go through the Jewish Orthodox culture, not so much more the other aspects of Judaism where they don't quite have that focus, but if you go through the Jewish culture, you'll find the respect and the honor that they have for their teachers, the value, okay? See, we don't value our elders. We don't value our older people. We don't value wisdom. We don't value those who may have more experience that could help us out. The idea of value, okay? We might like something somebody teaches and go, that's a great teaching, but do you value the teacher's willingness to be the one teaching? Do you value the person? I mean, the wording, the respect that they use when they talk about, people that have passed, they say of blessed memory. In other words, saying this person was valued and had given us something and left us something of value, okay? And they use honorariums and titles. See, of course, we're all hung up on titles because, after all, don't be called rabbi and don't be called leader and don't be called father. And we get hung up on the whole thing. But the titles bring our mind to a level of respect and honor. Okay, there are honorariums that we put in front of names. In the in the Jewish culture, there's honorariums you also can put at the end of names, like shlita. Okay, and you could put these things in there. And so, but the whole point is that these things are done because the people value the teacher. They value the elders. There's a respect and an honor that culturally we do not generally have. Okay? Culturally, we just generally do not have, all right? And so people say, they hold these guys up on such a high pedestal. Not the way that you in the below think. They have a high value of appreciation for them, not a, kissing their feet, bowing down to them type of thing like you would think from a secular sort of, Western mindset, okay? It's more of a appreciation for being willing to be one of the ones that laid a groundwork, or was willing to lay their life down to get a word out, or be willing to have something published so that we could have a copy of it, et cetera, et cetera. The value. See, Christianity doesn't value Moshe. I mean, they don't. They appreciate the Ten Commandments, but they think of that only as being the finger of God and the whole thing. They don't value Moshe. In the Jewish culture, there's nobody higher honored almost than Moshe. They don't value Avraham Avinu, our father Abraham, the way that the Jewish culture would, because it's about value. And that's where he says here, look, he says, I don't have a demon. I value my father. I appreciate, and by value, he means I hold him as the highest value. In other words, the most precious, the highest worth, beyond any price. See, imagine if you could do that with your spouse. Could you value your spouse? But they irritate the blah, blah, blah out of me. Yeah, they do. And you do that to them too. But do you value them? Can you value them? That's hard. You know, the Father values you. He made you. And believe me, you irritate him way more than any of us irritate each other. Trust me on that one. Sit there all the time going, they won't listen. I don't get it, but they don't listen. He says, but I value my Father, but you do not, and you do not value me. Christianity doesn't value Jesus. They worship this idea of a Messiah when they call him that. They don't value, they just think that he's the one that came and did everything for them. That's the only reason it's like loving the guy who comes around with the ice cream truck giving out free ice cream. They don't care less who's driving the truck. They just like that he's getting them free ice cream. You know? We had a guy at this beach club that I went to years ago, Harry the cop. We called him Harry. He was like the security guard that worked there, and he always had candy. And he always gave, whenever he walked around, he gave it out to the kids. He always had gum and whatever. He had candy. And nobody knew anything about this guy. But oh man, we valued him. We saw him coming. We thought he was the greatest guy on the earth. He walked around and gave everybody candy. That's kind of how Christianity sees Messiah. But do they value the fullness? That's what he's saying here. You don't value me. I'm the light of the world. I'm the truth. I'm the way. You don't value that. You say it was done away with, nailed to the. You do not value me at all. You toss me aside as being of no value at all. As a matter of fact, you say I have negative value. There are teachers out there saying it's wicked to try to keep Torah. He is the Torah. Calling Messiah wicked. The Word made flesh. He says, I don't have a demon, you guys do. You're crazy. He says, I value my Father, and you don't value me because I value my Father. And because I'm exposing you for not valuing things correctly. See, by the way, I'm going to say this from and again, hopefully this comes across as totally without ego at all, but do you value me or do you just impressed with teachings? I'm just saying out there, whoever the teacher is, do you value the person for being willing to say what they say? Do you value the person for standing up there and taking all the attacks and the things? Or do you just say, oh, I like that teaching, I'm impressed, and then you go find somebody else and I like that teaching and I'm impressed, and all you care about is that? Where do you value each other? Because I can promise you, there's a lot of you out there that treat me as if I have high value, while others treat me as if I'm of no value at all. And just so you know, I don't care. And if you know me, you know that's true, okay? But it's about you. It affects you in your relationship, how the Father watches you or not. See, some of you out there think that that's all I care about. You obviously don't know me, okay? The people that know me know it doesn't matter to me, okay? Except from the point of view that I know it matters to him for you. From that point of view, it matters to me, okay? But it doesn't matter to me in terms of it being about me. But how do you value your teachers, okay? Next live stream.
All right, from Pete Lamb. It says, it appears that John 7:16 through 18 exactly tracks Deuteronomy 18, verses 18 through 20. Was this lost on the Yehudim?
18 what?
Deuteronomy 18 through 20.
No, see, you got to remember, you're still thinking Christian-like when you're going to that. Because Deuteronomy 18, where it says, I'll raise up a prophet for you, the Jews always understood that also to be Joshua, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Hosea. I mean, they were not thinking necessarily Mashiach in Deuteronomy 18. We see that. Okay, now they do see that also, but it was lost on them, yes and no. But remember, if you're thinking of it from a Christian mindset that nobody fit this until Messiah Yeshua, you missed the point. Every prophet fit that between Moses and Yeshua. Okay? And so that's really part of what the person who asked the question is missing. All right? So were the Jews missing it? Yes, but not necessarily the way you're thinking. All right? Because Yeshua is now trying to bring a whole level beyond Isaiah, Ezekiel, all of the Nevi'im, the prophets. He's trying to say, I'm in a whole different place than those guys. All right, go ahead.
Okay, from Steve in in John 8:28, why does he say he is the son of Adam? Is it because as the Messiah, he comes from the line of David?
Okay, son of Adam was an idiomatic phrase. He uses it quite a lot to basically show that, what he did was going to be able to qualify in a way that nobody else would do in terms of the value of him versus the value of all of mankind. Remember, Adam also means mankind. It's not just the son of Adam literally, okay? And so he's trying to kind of put some things together there. So it's much more complicated than just saying, well, I'm the son of Adam, like literally. We're all the sons of Adam, literally. I mean, Adam was the first. So our lineage all goes back to Adam. But he's looking at it as I don't know if title's the right word, but it's more like a descriptive title. Okay? Like when he says things like son of man, son of Adam, it's the same idea, son of mankind.
From Laurie Bornstein, so would the Christians of today be like the Pharisees who think they have a relationship but really don't?
Yep.
And would you know what happens to them when they die?
Look, nowhere in here does it tell anybody what's going to happen to them when they die. It does say they will die. Okay? And in one case, of course, it says they'll die in their sins. We don't know what that's going to ultimately mean. It doesn't say. All right? Let's stop worrying about where people end up and worry about what you need to be doing while you're still walking and breathing and the below here, okay? I'll refer you to Millennium and Kingdom Part 4. Doesn't exist, except for the one copy in my office.
From Sam Davison, says, can you explain 8:28 where it talks about lifting up the son of Adam? Is he talking about lifting him up in honor or about his death?
No, it's talking about his death.
From Janie Olison, it's a question about 8:58, is the I am. Yeshua is saying, I am Yahweh, because the name Yahweh is also I am.
Yep. It's the same thing when they came to the garden to arrest him. And they said, we're looking for Yeshua of Nazareth. And he said, I am. And they all fell down. He used the name in its full power and basically knocked everybody off their feet. And so he's invoking the name also in a, we say the name the way we say it. I have no idea if we're pronouncing it right. I mean, every possible way I've seen people try to pronounce the name has a certain amount of Hebrew language issues, okay? The language doesn't necessarily do what everybody wants it to do. But when you use the word and the name the way he did in its fullness, correctly, and with all its power, it triggered something. And that's why they're all picking up stones and wanting to throw at him. That's why those at the garden, got knocked over. Okay? But he is trying to tell you here, and he does it in other gospels, to say that he is the I am. And that's blasphemy to them. Of course, it's only blasphemy if it's not true. But because it's true, it's not. But they thought of that as blasphemy. How dare you claim to be the I am? But that goes right into the Father and the Son teaching. He is the I am. All right? Go ahead.
From Olivier and Janet Hoffman, chapter 8, verse 47, when Yeshua says that those whose Father has not revealed himself to are not of him, could you please expand a bit on this verse?
I think I explained this. I guess I'll try again. Look, Being of Elohim is a choice. And if you choose not to be, you can't hear. I don't know how else to explain it. He says, he who is of Elohim hears the words of Elohim, but therefore you do not hear because you're not of Elohim. But we're Jews. Yeah, but you made choices. You've chosen to close your ears. Look, I'm 56. I've had a few arguments in my life. More than a few. And I can tell you, I've argued with quite a few people that ears were closed on whatever the topic was. There was, and by the way, that's when it turns from a discussion into an argument. It's only an argument if one or both parties is speaking and not listening. See, a discussion means both are speaking but both are listening. But if you're speaking and I'm speaking and neither one of us is actually listening to the other person, or if you're speaking and not listening, or if I'm speaking, even if it's just one of us, then you have an argument. So don't tell me, well, we were just having a healthy debate. Not if neither one of you is listening. Then it's an argument. Arguing, as Paul tells in Timothy, or in Titus actually, is, of course, completely useless and of no value to argue over genealogies and Torah and other things. Titus 3:9, I believe, okay? Because you can't get anywhere with an argument. Nobody's listening. We're just trying to beat each other down with information. If you are of Elohim, you can hear. If you've already made up your mind, you can't hear. Guess what? If you've made up your mind and your mind is in his mind, you can't hear. So that makes you no longer of Elohim. It's a choice. But I prefer this, but this is what I want, this is what I like. Well, now you're starting to lean towards you and not him. Next question.
From Alyssa Holmes, the Creator made the man in his image. Children imitate their parents. Is that kind of like the above and below thing?
Yeah, you need to take real seriously what you're letting your kids see, because they're going to imitate you whether you like it or not, especially at the younger age. And then your kids start doing things, you wonder, well, I can't believe they're doing this. Well, but you do it. Why are you shocked that they're doing it? You sit there telling your kids not to smoke, but you smoke packs and packs a day in front of them. Tell kids not to drink, but you drink all day in front of them. You tell kids not to do this or that, but you do it in front of them. Whatever it is. You tell them to keep Torah and believe in Yahweh, but they watch you breaking it all the time. What example are you setting? They're not stupid. They're naive. They don't really know what they don't know, but they're not dumb. They can see what they see. You know the old saying, your actions are so loud I can't hear what you're saying. You know? Your actions speak so loudly. But I told them with your mouth. What'd you tell them with your actions? You know? We've had to work that through with some people that really didn't get it. I had a guy who was engaged, moved in with the fiancée with a 15-year-old daughter, years ago, said, this is no good. Oh, but we're getting married in a couple of months. We needed to save on rent. I don't care. What do you think the 15-year-old daughter's learning? Oh, but I live in a different part of the house. Okay. That somehow that changes what it appears. So we told him, you can't do that in this congregation. You need to fix it. Gave you 30 days. Didn't fix it. Gave him another 30 days. Didn't fix it. Finally had to say, you got to go. Guess what? Do you think he actually got married? No. They were just trying to do what they wanted to do. Do you think the daughter learned a lesson? Oh, yeah. She was already not interested in what they were doing Torah-wise anyway. And now she's learning it in whatever way they set the example. All right, so you want me to keep Torah, and I'm going to watch you and see what it looks like. Yeshua says, if you want to understand the Father, watch me, you'll know what it looks like. You claim to be of Messiahs. What Messiah are you showing them? Well, I'm not judging you. I do a lousy job myself. Some of you are thinking, yeah, you do. That's your thoughts. take the plank out of your own eye first. Okay? I do. We all do a lousy job. Why? We don't value him enough, and we're way too selfish and too wrapped up in ourselves and too stuck in the below. You got to get your head out of the below and stick it into, you know what? Your head needs to be in the clouds. Sorry. My brain makes those kind of quick connections sometimes. People say, get your head out of the clouds. No, get it back in the clouds. Get it out of the below. Next question.
From Greg Wallen, it says, Rabbi, would a reasonable analogy be when Kepha walked on the water, he was literally and relationally operating in the above?
Until he realized what he was doing, and then he fell. Yep, that's exactly it. He was completely heads in the clouds. He was completely focused on the above, focused on Yeshua, and had no thought that he was actually walking on water. But of course, then the below kicked in. We call that reality. But it's not reality. He was in reality for a brief moment. He was in reality. Then he crashed into this simulation that we live in and sank. All right, next question.
From Gary Fugate, it says in chapter 8, verses 32, the truth shall make you free. Is he not speaking of freedom from the flesh, a work towards perfection, which we will not know until Yeshua transforms us in the end?
Well, I mean, look, it's like I said before, and I'll say it again. Your interaction with, your relationship with truth will eventually set you free from all of the stumbling blocks and the shackles of sin in your life. It's about sin. He makes it clear that it's about sin. And so, by the way, because you are having a relationship with the truth doesn't mean that that relationship is with all truth immediately. There's a revealing of truth that takes time. It's a progressive revelation. And as you have it progressively revealed, you make adjustments and are gradually set free from more of those things. Next question.
From Olivier and Janet Hoffman at 8:29, is it possible to accomplish what Yeshua did, only what pleases the Father? I know it is about doing our utmost to be perfect, but also our works should show growth. How high can we aim?
Aim as high as he allows you to see. Do what you can see with your utmost. Aim as high as he's allowed you to see. Is that a good answer? All right. I don't know where the bar is for you. I don't know how high he is, But as high as he's shown you, aim as high as he's shown you. And by the way, when he reveals more, aim higher. But it would be wrong of me to set the bar for everybody. Everybody's in the journey at different points in the walk than everybody else. And so aim as high as he's shown you. Whatever he's revealed Yeshua to be, aim for that. Go. Next question.
From Leanne, says, question, in the theme of honor and shame, is it correct to perceive everything referenced as being from above as honorable/esteem worthy, and those below as a position of dishonor/unworthy of esteem?
I don't know that I would want to make a statement as sort of blanket statement as that. I would want to say that the only things that are esteemed and honorable in the below is when they match the above. How about if I put it that way? All right, I think that kind of goes to where Leanne was going with that the only esteem and honor in the below is when the below is functioning like the above. Okay? By the way, the animals have no problem with that. Nature has no problem with that. Only human beings have a problem with that. Okay? And so we're almost always in a state of dishonor and shame because we're not functioning like as the above. But when we come into alignment with the above, we are now being in a place of honor and esteem, okay? So hopefully, I think that answers where she was trying to go. So I wouldn't have just made it as a blanket statement, but hopefully that makes sense. It's only when the below matches the above that there's honor, okay, and esteem. And so that's our striving, right? We're striving to conform into the above. I'm really getting a kick out of this above, below sort of esoteric language. It's like we're going into this whole other place. It's great. The things I want to teach you guys someday. All right. We'll get there. But you want it, then you got to get there first. Okay? Because he's not going to let me go until you're ready. So you guys are like, oh, we want more. No, he's not unleashing all of that stuff until you're ready. This little piece was just because it's where we are right now. Okay? And don't you run off and try to find it on your own either. You're just going to get yourself lost, and next thing you know, you're going to convert into Judaism or something. All right? Be patient. Okay, if I'm your teacher, you submit to that. Be patient. We'll get to where you need to get. Right now, you're getting everything you need. All right? Go.
I believe that is it for any questions today's teachings.
Awesome. Amen. Amen.
We had 683 on here today.
All right. And we're over 19,000 on the subs. If you're online and you have not subscribed, please subscribe. It will help our numbers in terms of the metrics that they use, the algorithms that they use to put the teachings on the sidebar for people. So, we have 19,200. I think we really will start to be able to have a much more effective reach when we cross the, 50,000 mark at some point, 50 to 100,000. So that's when things really start to explode out there. But right now we're trying to get to 20,000, and so that's just up to you guys. If you want to subscribe, if this is a blessing to you, just hit the subscribe button. And that'll help. If hitting the like button doesn't hurt either, because the algorithms and the way that they work things is that basically the more people that subscribe to something or like it, the more the algorithm assumes that that is something that other people looking for something similar might want to see, because a lot of people seem to think it was good or useful and had an interest in it. So somebody who's new and only has, 20, 30 subscribers is not going to pop up very often on a sidebar or in a search engine, because they've not established that anybody actually has found their stuff to be of use. The assumption is in the algorithm is that the more subscribers, the more people found it useful. Okay? And so, which is actually what you want as a consumer, is that when you search for something, is that you want the most useful to what you're looking for to pop up first. And that usually is the ones that more people have seen, subscribed, or liked will pop up more often, okay? So anyway, just to put that out there, I appreciate all of you that have at least hit the subscribe button to help with that. All right, so that being said, I think we got most of the children in here. I know we saw some of them walk in.